Okay, good.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Matilda Book Club, brought to you by Matilda the Musical, now playing on Broadway and London's West End and Australia. We are joined by the lovely and talented Ms. Lucy Dahl. Hello, Lucy.
Hello again. I'm so excited to be back. I've missed everybody.
I know it's been too long. And also joining us are some very special guests from right here in New York City, TADA Youth Theater. Hello, TADA!
Hi!
Hi, TADA!
Hello. So we are talking about one of our favorite books, Henry Sugar. And if you did your extra credit, you also read And Six More, the way that we all did. But because we only have a few minutes or 30 minutes or so today to talk, we're going to focus on Henry Sugar. And I would love, Lucy, for you to talk to us about how your dad was inspired to write this story. Because it's not a typical, like, one of the kids' stories he wrote, right?
Right. I will start by saying that he had a few vices, and one of his vices was gambling, if you consider gambling to be a vice. To him it was a sport, and to him it was a game, and he actually took his gambling very seriously. He always had boundaries around it, never to gamble more than you're willing to lose. And he always kept himself on a budget, but he found it tremendous fun. He was a talented gambler. He was a good gambler, and to make it even more interesting, I learned to play blackjack, also known as 21 or pontoon or 21, before I learned how to play Monopoly or Scrabble.
It's better for math skills anyway, no? I mean, you know, you really learn how to count that way.
Yeah, you do. You do. That's what we used to do at home after dinner. You know, at home after dinner now, most people go off into their rooms and watch television or go on Facebook or do whatever. What we used to do as a family, we used to have these beautiful, and I think that I have them somewhere, but I looked for them for about 5 minutes before we came on air and I couldn't find them. These beautiful mother-of-pearl chips, they were sort of like, you know, when you put a penny in a machine and squash it?
Yes, yeah.
It comes out odd shapes. They were shaped like that. And so we never played with real money. We played with chips, and we learned how to gamble. And in turn, I, too, love to gamble. I meet my brother Theo in Vegas every single year for one night. I only go for one night. And I never take more than I'm prepared to lose. And we have a good time.
That's amazing. And you still play blackjack? That's still your game?
It's the only game I'll play. I did actually teach my daughters to play blackjack as well before they learned how to play Monopoly. And they are very good gamblers. We were recently in London where gambling is legal. And we went in and we each started with £100. I left £30 up. Chloe, who is 24, she, I think, left with something like £1,400. And I'm not telling everybody to go and gamble. I'm just telling you the truth. And Phoebe broke even. I think maybe Phoebe went up a little bit too. So it's in our blood.
They really must watch out for you when you're coming to the casino, like you're gonna break the house or something. Jesus.
Well, my stepson actually counts cards. He knows how to count cards, which is really impressive. I've been in a casino with him where they've actually asked him to leave.
That's amazing. Okay, so TADA, I have a question for you guys. Show of hands, how many of you kids know how to play blackjack? Is that one?
Just one.
You are welcome at my house any time for our family sport.
Definitely.
Bring your cash. Be prepared to lose all the cash.
No, mother-of-pearl chips.
Oh, then okay, fine. No real dough. So where do you think, you know, he had a love of gambling. Where do you think this idea of the yogi who can see without using his eyes came from?
Well, In all serious honesty, I find this story that he wrote very surprising because he was an atheist of some type, and he wasn't always an atheist. And it's quite a commonly known story that after one of our family dogs died, he was heartbroken and he went to the local vicar, which over here you call pastor, I think, Church of England, Protestant. And he said, I'd like to know where my dog has gone. I would like you to tell me, please. And this man said, animals don't go to heaven. And which broke my father's heart even more. And from then on, it changed his what he'd been raised and his belief. And so what I think he did is what most of us do when we're searching and we're looking for other things. I think that he researched other arenas, and I wish that he was still alive and I could ask him that question. But I can only guess that it was his clever old mind thinking of, now how can I make a story about something that I'm passionate about, something that I love, how it can beat the system. And he was probably, I think, passionate about spirituality and the universe. He was definitely passionate about the universe and stars and interested in all of that stuff. So I think that this story came from very, very, very deep in his heart. And I also think it's a beautiful story with a wonderful ending and a great moral.
No question. It's just such a great thing to reread for me, because it had been such a long time, and to read through like how he starts as this gambler and he's going to trick the system, and then he ends up being this lovely benefactor helping out kids and starting orphanages. It's so beautiful, and it's such a cool thing. It makes you want to try. Like,
well, it's also quite wonderful about how he describes rich, filthy rich men, and how all they do is think about how to get richer. And how he opens it with that, and then how he ends up with the joy of giving it away, and makes it very clear in the beginning that you know, Henry Sugar was not a happy man in the beginning, yes. And you know, channeled his shortcomings into the opposite of a shortcoming, whatever that is.
Oh, I love the way he describes how rich people are. He's just so bored. He's bored to tears. He has so much money, he doesn't know what to do with.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great.
And I don't think that is these days, because there are so many charities and so much access to charity. But I think back then, before computers, and I myself grew up in England and have been to many a large home filled with bored rich people, because they've got nothing to do, because they don't need to work.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of incredible, that's actually a good segue, because we have with us the young men and women from TADA Youth Theater, and these, I don't want to call you kids, you're certainly not kids, you're older than that, but you talented humans are performers, and they have recently done a staged reading of literature, and actually banned literature in particular, which included a Roald Dahl story, which I think was really interesting. Guys, what story did you do a reading of?
We did a reading from James and the Giant Peach.
Cool, cool. And can you remind us why that story? Lucy, do you remember why that story was banned?
I believe it's not banned everywhere. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's banned in certain places, in certain libraries, in certain states. And I believe that it is banned because of the word commonly used as the same word as a donkey, ass. Ass. Yes. A-S-S. Is that correct? Am I right?
Is that right, guys? You guys were surprised that it was banned, right, when you were doing your reading?
Yeah.
Tell when you read, I'd be interested to hear from you. and I don't know in which order you're going to do this or how you've chosen to answer my questions, and I'm really not the interviewer, but I would be interested that when you read the word ass, my father used to say he's an ass, meaning he's a donkey. That's in England, an ass is another word for a donkey. He certainly didn't mean your bottom. He would never have written you are a silly bottom. So when you read it, did you think bottom or did you think donkey? Or how about show of hands for bottom? How about show of hands for bottom? And show of hands for donkey?
Split room.
And so what about the one at the far back left? What did you think it meant?
Me? The glasses?
No, over there. You can't see me. I'm pointing at you with my pencil. The girl in the back.
Oh, I thought it was a donkey.
You thought it was a donkey too. So we've got 3 donkeys and 1 bottom. No, 2 bottoms. And a Midsummer Night's Dream.
Oh, amazing. Well done, well done. Will you guys, do you have any questions for Lucy about specifically Henry Sugar, or anything you want to ask?
I'm trying to think.
Well, I can help you. I have a question to ask you because I read Henry Sugar recently, specifically for this interview. I reread it specifically for this time with you because I wanted to be prepared. And in one of the chapters that I was reading, it talked about him taking, Dad talked about him taking photographs. And I remember while I was reading it, I thought to myself, ooh, when I do the Hangout, I'm going to show them my father's camera that he actually used during the war and during that time, which I have here in my hands. And I'll show you if you can tell me which story it was, because I can't remember.
From the 6 stories, right? Is it Henry Sugar or is it one of the other 6? Do you guys remember which story had the camera in it?
I know it's not the hitchhiker. Because I've read the hitchhiker. It's not the hitchhiker.
It's not the hitchhiker and it's not the swan.
Right.
Or
swan.
Perhaps it could be the boy who talked with animals. Ah, it was. It was the boy who talked with animals because he talks about, in that story, he talks about being in Jamaica and he picked up his camera and he went to take photographs of what all the fuss was about.
And then he sees the turtle.
And that's the turtle. So now I'm going to show you. This is the camera. It's quite beautiful. And I'll open it up. It's a Leica. And this is the camera that he had throughout his whole life. Life wasn't like it is now where you update things all the time. You get something and it's your treasure and you keep it forever. And this is the camera that was actually his that he used during the Second World War and throughout his whole life. And it's really very beautiful. If you look at the top of it, you can see you had to actually know how to take photographs in order to.
Yeah. So that's beautiful. It really is incredible. You actually had to be skilled. Now it's just you just tap.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and he developed them as well. So
was that pretty common, Lucy? Do you think that was a common skill, or was it really just a few people who knew how to take and develop their own photos?
I think you had to be willing to learn. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that he was an artist, and he loved all forms of art. He loved photographs. He loved paintings. He loved music. He loved books. He was an artist himself. And I think with that comes the passion for creating art. How many of you are artists?
Yeah, all of you.
All of you. And how many of you are writers?
And who can play an instrument? Yeah, well done. Well done. Those TADA kids are talented kids. I'm curious.
You have got me now. You must have some questions you want to ask me, so please fire away.
I have one. Now with the process of filmmaking has developed far beyond the adaptations of your father's work. Which one do you feel like should be made into a film, or should all the stories be made into an anthology film?
One that hasn't yet been made.
Yeah.
The BFG.
Yes.
Which is actually not a secret anymore, that it is in fact going to be made into a film. And Steven Spielberg is going to be directing it, which is very exciting. And Melissa Matheson, who wrote E.T., has written the screenplay, and that's terrifically exciting. So that's one. And also SEO Trot. Have any of you read SEO Trot?
No. No.
SEO Trot. Okay, who's the first person that can tell me what SEO Trot spells backwards?
Do you need a piece of paper? Cheat! Well done. What do you got?
Tortoise?
Yes. So SEO Trot has just been made into a television feature film that's going to be shown in England. I don't know what's going on with it over here. I should know. I probably do know, but I can't think of it at the moment.
That's so exciting.
It's going to be a Christmas, and Dustin Hoffman is in it, and Judi Dench is in it, and it's a really beautiful love story about tortoises. And we had tortoises growing up, so everything that my father wrote about really, as you, Elizabeth, now know, and anybody who's been watching these Hangouts really know that everything was very close to his heart, and basically within a 5-mile radius of our home.
Well, I'm curious. I mean, did you, after you read it, or did you know? Because in my imagination, when I hear about Henry trying to teach himself to see through things, I imagine him and his writing hut doing the same thing with, if he's got writer's block and he's just staring at that piece of paper and willing himself to see through it. Do you think that came out of something specific, that ability to see without your eyes?
If I were to take a wild guess, I would guess that he did spend some time in areas where meditation and forgive me, I'm not even going to waste time trying to find the words. India and places like that, and my guess is that he always loved magic. He was fascinated by magic. He always wanted to know how it was done, but I also think that a piece of him believed that magic absolutely existed, and in fact I can say that now I'm sure that he believed in magic, because he says that at the end of the Min Pins. If you look at the very last page of the Min Pins, it says, and I'll say this by heart, if you watch with glittering eyes around you, oh God, I'm going to mess it up, blah, 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 but if you don't believe in magic, you will never find it. And I do believe that he believed in magic. And my guess is that this probably came from him seeing a man walk across coals, because men do that, and women, right. I assume women. And there has to be a tremendous amount of mind and concentration, and I think that he looked into that and he thought, hey, there's something here. I can put this into gambling and make it a great story. I mean, I personally have had some experience with meditation, and I find it the most extraordinary thing in the human consciousness. Have any of you ever meditated?
Nice.
One? Okay. Do you find that it sort of takes you to places where you think that unbelievable things can happen?
Well, I'm not specifically spiritual, but there was a yoga class that I took in school, and meditation is a big in yoga, as most of you guys probably know. It's called Shavasana at the end, and it's really to calm your mind and your body down. And when you meditate, just purely without the yoga, probably in your room, which is what I do, or in a quiet place, you get to calm your mind, and it makes you think clearer. And there's one funny thing that happens: you get rejuvenated. That's funny.
Yeah.
It's sort of like you just woke up from sleep, but you know what was happening around you. And I think that's one of the magical things about meditation.
And that's exactly what happened to Henry Sugar, basically. Magical things happened to him, and he was rejuvenated. His whole life changed. Not that we're going to make this into a sermon, but it's an extraordinary thing. And I was surprised and happy when I reread that book, because if I was lucky enough to know my father, and he certainly did not come across as a spiritual figure. He came across as a very opinionated, clever, interesting man. Mm-hmm. But spirituality, it was obviously one of his well-kept secrets, as much as he was being a spy. Now, my daughter is obviously watching this chat downstairs, and she has just handed me something we have on our fridge.
Are you kidding?
It says, I'm just going to read it. Watch with glittering eyes the whole world around you, because the greatest secrets are always hidden in the most unlikely places. Those who don't believe in magic will never find it.
Wow, that's well timed. Is that Chloe?
That's Chloe.
Chloe. That's hilarious.
And Nikki. I didn't actually see which one brought it in, Chloe or Nikki. You may have seen them. Did you see
well done. No, I didn't see them. Well, TADA, do you have any other questions for Lucy about Henry Sugar or any of the other stories?
Yes, I do. So this is really directed towards Lucy. Your father, Roald Dahl, wrote a lot of children's books and Henry Sugar, children's stories, and Henry Sugar seems to be aimed at more an older audience. Do you think that he enjoyed writing for an older audience, or do you think that he enjoyed writing for a younger audience more because of their their imagination?
I know that he preferred writing for children, because he had the same sense of humor as children, and he really enjoyed writing for children and making them laugh and championing them and everything else. I've got Henry Sugar right here. Do any of you know offhand the year that it was written? Because if I know the year, I can answer your question. Hold on 1 second. It was written in 1977. So that was quite early on. That was before Matilda. So if you actually are interested in the course of his writing and his style of writing, he wrote his early on books, which were James, Charlie,
BFG.
No, the BFG was later.
That was later.
That was later. And then Henry Sugar came in between, where obviously he was switching things up, because then after Henry Sugar came the BFG, Matilda, the Witches, S.E.O. Trott, the Vicar of Nibbleswick, and so I think it was probably a bit of starting to change his style of writing, because James and Charlie, even though they had the same style as the other stories, they're from two different genres of his life. And when I say that, I really mean two different marriages. The early ones, he was married to my mother, and there were children running around the house, and that was one particular life that he had. And then the second, the post, say, 1980s on, the books that he wrote then, there were no longer children running around the house. We had all grown up and we'd moved out. And he was able to write, I think, in a very different way, less imagination, almost more real. I mean, I think that Matilda and the BFG, I mean, The Witches is pretty imaginative, but I think that what he did is he delved closer into his own heart in his later style of stories than his earlier ones.
So interesting. It is a really big shift, though. I mean, that's the fact that you can see that shift in years is crazy.
You really can. You can see the shift in his writing, and also I think his happiness. His earlier stories are a lot darker. They're set in much darker places. James and the Giant Peach is very, poor James is a dark. That's a dark world. And Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, those children are dark, and the things that happen to them are dark.
Right.
And then you go on to the BFG and Matilda, and even though they're dark, they're lighter. They're lighter in a way. And it's no secret that when he was married to now my stepmother, he was madly in love with her. And very, very, very happy, and I think wrote his best works. I mean, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is also brilliant, but he also did The Great Glass Elevator. Some things, well, I'll stop and let you talk.
No, it's so interesting, though. It's so interesting. Even in Henry Sugar, you have The Swan, which is super intense and dark.
Yeah.
And then, Henry Sugar certainly has later moments in it, or The Boy with the Animals, like that's much later, even in the same publication. Guys, do you have any other questions? Sorry, we keep talking over you guys. Keep going.
I have one. Why do you think your father often wrote breaking the fourth wall and speaking directly to readers?
When he was in his work hut, he was in what he called his nest. He would have a routine that was from 10 until 12 in the morning. Then he would come down and have lunch, and he would have a rest, and then he would go back from either 2 until 4 or 3 until 5. It was always 2-hour slots. And he would walk into his work hut with his thermos, with everything that he needed, and there he would do what he called get into his nest, where there were curtains on the window, and the door was closed, and he went into a different world. And I really believe that he knew that what he was writing was going to be read. And he used to tell us stories out loud in that same way. And I believe that he wrote as if he were talking to somebody. He wrote his stories as he was telling a story. He felt descriptions. He used to say, I actually heard him, he didn't used to say, I heard him say once, I don't know if it was in an interview, I think it probably was, when I was in the same room, maybe over a lunch or something, and he said, being a writer is a very difficult job to get it right, because at least when you're talking, you get to have facial expressions, and you can use your hands, and you can describe things with your hands and your mouth and your eyes. When you're just given a pencil, you have to be able to give a visual. You have to be able to explain everything you can, every single final detail of what you want that person to know with words. And he said, just try for an hour talking without a facial expression and without any hand movements, and you'll see how very difficult it is to get it right. And in fact, when I was reading Henry Sugar just now, I realized, I noticed the descriptions, and I noticed how he mentions it in the story, in the book about, it's one of the latter ones about, I want to know everything about this person, whether his shoelace was untied, whether his teeth were dirty, whether he had And I hope that answers your question.
Such a cool. Oh, it's so cool. Guys, do you have any other questions?
I want a question from each of you.
Okay. Good task. Go to it.
I just had it. Henry Sugar has a very at the end, very happy ending, whereas like Man from Miami has like, you know, the thumbs on the wall, and the Hitchhiker ends very, you know, very lopsided in a way, but this one has a very like glorious winning ending. Why do you think your father did that?
You mean with Henry Sugar?
Yeah.
I think because he was passionate about blackjack and he didn't like to lose. And I think that in a lot of stories he identified himself from when he was a child, and bullying. And with this one, no question about it, he identified Henry Sugar with a couple of things: with himself as an adult in his adult life, with his own passion. And I also think that he was able, in a descriptive way, to be able to get out how he felt about the idle rich and people that inherit money and therefore feel that they don't have to work or do anything with the world. He used to, I heard him say many times, even regarding us, he would say, and I think that children, if their families are able, should have everything they need, like clothes and school, but anything that they want, they should jolly well earn it.
Good on him.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, but good. It's
No, it's true. I feel the same.
But and your kids are hard workers, you know. It's like you work for what you want. It makes sense.
Yeah, they both got hard-working jobs.
Yeah, they do it. They do it well.
And they don't live at home anymore. My husband put a stop to that. He was the one out after college. After you can come and spend Christmas night, and that's it.
Oh my goodness. So who hasn't asked a question yet? I haven't been keeping track here. Who's left? Who's left?
I think the two girls. I don't think either of the girls have asked me.
Ladies?
Should be ladies first, I believe, boys.
That's right. Anything about Henry Sugar? Anything at all?
Or you can ask me anything about me. You can ask me about my animals. You can ask me about you can ask me anything you want. You can ask me about my childhood. You can ask me about my future that I know nothing about.
Well, watching your father and his work, have you taken any passion towards that as well? Have you written yourself?
I have. It's not an easy task being the offspring of two very talented artists. My mother was a very talented actress and won many awards, including an Academy Award for Best Actress. My father, obviously, he doesn't need any explanation. And I love to write. I really do love to write. And there's an upside to that, and there's a downside to that. The upside is that you have the connections, and it will get you into the room where other people might not be able to get into that room. And the downside is that it won't keep you there. You have to. I live in Los Angeles, and in Los Angeles, this town is filled with sons and daughters of very talented, successful people, all trying to, be as good as their mother and father. And I think it was very difficult for me for many years because they sort of made it look easy. I have to be honest with you. You know, I knew that my father worked very hard, but I I never ever heard him come down to the house and say, I don't know what to do with my next story. He always knew what to do. And so with my programming, I grew up thinking that this probably wasn't going to be very difficult. And it is. It's very difficult. And there's a lot of competition, and you have to be very dedicated. And the one thing that my father taught me was that if you're going to choose to be self-employed, your routine is where you have to have your most discipline. You have to set yourself a realistic routine, and you have to stick to it as if you're, punching in a time clock. And even if you have nothing to write, you still have to sit your ass on the chair and your donkey on the chair.
Yes.
And still do it. And I've had some success. I had a movie made that you girls might like. You're right at the age. Not that I'm going to plug myself, but I'll just tell you because you asked. It's called Wild Child, and it's with Emma Roberts. And I had that movie produced, which was tremendously exciting for me. And I have had a lot of other scripts that I have done bought, and some moving forward, some not. As I said, there's a lot of competition. And I'm in the middle of something now, and I wish I could tell you, but I think it hasn't been announced yet, so I think it's still secret. So
news to come. That's exciting.
Put me on your Google alert.
That's right. And books too. You've written books, Lucy, that have been published.
I have. I've written books to do with my dad. I wrote a really fun book that was called the James and the Giant Peach, the book and movie scrapbook, which is, I don't even know, I think you can find it on eBay now. But it's if you're interested in my father and James and the Giant Peach, it was the process of his writing and how he writes from the manuscript all the way through. I was lucky enough, Henry Selick, the director, was kind enough to allow me to be present throughout all of the filming. And that's when I decided that I wanted to be in film. Little did I realize that I was going to sit alone in a room for the next 15 years.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think I don't want to keep, because you guys, you must be after school this
point. We got one more girl.
That's right.
I have a question. So reading Henry Sugar, I noticed that like all the questions that could ever pop up in my head were answered. And you said that he used to like tell you stories. Do you think that the reason why like it's so descriptive is because like you ask questions yourself? Do you think that like influenced his work?
No. That's
fair.
That was the descriptiveness is, and I was also interested to read this too. And he talks about another author who he greatly admired. Who was it, Elizabeth? I've gone brain dead. In the second to last story, is it Salinger?
Yes. Hold on. Lucky Break.
In Lucky Break, Salinger, I think. But Elizabeth's about to tell us.
Talks about Dickens. Keep talking.
And he asked. He basically. My father was lucky enough to be able to meet with this author who he greatly admired, who I'm so sorry the name is blank, but Elizabeth's about to tell us. And my father said, well, why don't I make, he said, I admire your story of the war and your time in the war, and I'd love to write a story about it for the New York Post. And my father said, well, I will be happy to make notes for you. And what Dad did instead is he went away and he wrote the whole story himself. But what this author did, and I can't believe you haven't found it yet. I'm going to find it before you. What he said was what I said earlier, which is I need a lot of descriptions. I want you to be very, very descriptive so that the reader can really picture what you're trying to say. And then when you go into his other stories, and what Dad used to say about his own writing is if somebody's ugly, you make them really ugly. And if somebody's mean, you make them really mean. And if they've got crooked teeth, they've got really crooked teeth. And if they've got hairs coming out of their nose, they've got, long, gnarly, knotted hair coming out of their nose. So it's really, really in the description. You can't find it, can you?
Apparently, I should wear my glasses when I do these things.
Can you not see the page?
I can see some of it. It's a little fuzzy. True confessions, guys. I need glasses to read.
Okay, so if you guys have read Henry Sugar, do you know which one I'm talking about in Lucky Break?
The author who has him write that story, and yeah.
I'm sure somebody's watching and just screaming. I'm going to find it. Elizabeth,
Okay.
you talk for a minute because I'm going to find it. Here we are.
Guys, when is your next TADA gig? Tell us when your next gig is.
Well, we have auditions for our winter show, Everything About a Family, coming up, and the rehearsal process for that is in December, and it'll run through January through February.
Nice! So you guys are going to audition. You have to audition to get on to their shows?
Yeah, as members of the Ensemble program, we get free training in singing, dancing, acting, all aspects of theater discipline, and then within the Ensemble, we audition for the main stage productions.
Very cool. You guys do good work. We've heard all about it.
Thank you.
I found it, and I'm so embarrassed that it slipped from my mind. It was C.S. Forester.
Oh.
And C.S. Forester had heard that my father, he was in America, and basically the Second World War had just started in America, and he wanted to put together a story of for the Americans of what the war was like. And so C.S. Forester tracked down my dad and asked him to tell him, and Dad said, why don't I make some notes for you? And then it's actually a lovely story. And then he came back with the full story, and Forrester then wrote to my father and said, I asked you for notes, you gave me a beautifully written story, I sent it to my agent, it's going to be published, and the fee is $1,000 minus my agent's commission, which is 10%, and congratulations. And that was the beginning of his writing career. If that hadn't happened, if C.S. Forester had not tracked him down, he would probably never have become a writer. He would probably have become a doctor. That's what he thought he wanted to be.
But the way you describe it, it does make it seem easy. Like it's like an actress being discovered in a coffee shop. Like, oh.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy, but it just seems that way.
But when you think, when you look at the reality of it, and each book would take him a year to write. So that's a long time at 4 hours a day, every single day of the week, weekends as well. What's that? 4 7s are what, guys? And then minus what is it?
28.
Okay, so that's 28 hours a week, and then minus a few days, say, for Christmas and stuff. But on just one book, one story. That's with writing and rewriting, and in those days he did it with a pencil. And he actually, if you can look at his archives if you go to roalddahl.com, and you can actually see how he would cut the pages with scissors and tape with sellotape. That's how he cut and pasted, and how he actually did all of that. So even though he made it look easy, it must have been hard at times.
That's original cut and paste. That's where the name comes from. Someplace real, guys. Lucy, I don't want to keep you any longer. You've been so amazing, and thank you so much for joining us and for doing all the extra credit work too. We appreciate that.
I'm so sorry. This is our last one, and we've been doing this for such a long time, and I'm going to miss you. And
I know, a year and a half. We keep in touch, and we'll share pig and baby photos offline.
Yep, and maybe we'll do the odd one every now and again if something something pops up and needs a bit of publicity.
Agreed. and guys from TADA, I want to say thank you to you guys too. You're so talented. You're so great to spend your after school with us. So we really appreciate it. I'm sure you have plenty of weekend to get going on. So hope everyone will come see Matilda. And Lucy, thank you again for everything. And we'll talk to you all soon. Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.